Hey guys, Miss Reese here. We're going to be talking about in your career pathway today, we're going to be talking about education and how you can pay for upper level education. You might think, oh, I can't go to college. No one in my family's gone to college, or my family's really poor. There's no way I could ever afford it. And we're going to talk about some of the options you have so that you can afford it. Because honestly, everyone can find a way to go. If you want to go, if you want to get education, whether it's at a university or at a community college or whatever, you can find a way. It means you may have to do some work. You may have to look into some of your options, but most people don't have money sitting in their bank account to pay for college, but they still manage to go. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that you could do that so that you are not stopping yourself by saying, oh, if finances are the reason that you think you're not going to go to college, put that away right now. Like, that is not a good enough reason not to go. You can go. So let's take a look at your pathways assignment. So yesterday you should have filled all of this out. If you have not done this section, which I believe most of my classes have not, do that first. Okay, so let's go through that just really quickly. If you've already done this, you can skip through this part. But if you have not done the skills quiz, then you're going to want to go here and go through and answer the questions about what skills you have. This is the only page that it asks that. So you'll come in here and type in what the 5 are. And if you just pull down the menu, you can pick it. So you don't even have to type it. If you're like, oh, I did singing, so I can come over here and I can choose singing from the list. Okay, and it's in the same order that it is on the thing. So enter the 5 that you chose, okay, and then you do show me the results, and it will give you a big list of different careers that fit. So once again, you're going to type in 5 careers that are in this, anywhere in this list. And it could be quite a long list depending on how many things you picked. Okay, so I would stick to 5. I wouldn't pick too many. Pick the ones you're best at, okay? But then you can type in, oh, music therapist or news anchor or court reporter or whatever, and you can type that in here. So if you haven't done the skills quiz section, please do that. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the education section right here. Your name is already on it, and you'll be filling it out as we go through this PowerPoint. Actually, the very first thing we're going to do is on the bottom. We're going to be doing this part first, so make sure you scroll down to that. All right, so let's start talking about that, types of training and education. So when people think, oh, I'm going to go to college, they think, oh, Utah State or BYU or U of U, or I'm going to go to Berkeley, I'm going to go to Harvard. And that's true, those are education, that's universities. But there are actually a lot more options for education than you might realize. And sometimes a university is not the best choice for what's best for you. So certifications is one thing you can get, where you can actually get a certification that says, I can do this thing. Sometimes certifications might be specialized within a certain area. For example, a CNA, which is a certified nurse's assistant, that's a certification. You don't go to a whole bunch of schooling. You just do like a 5-week training course, and then you pass a test, and then you are certified to do that job. So there can be jobs like that are certifications you can get. Jordan District offers a lot of certifications through our JTC, our JTech, and other districts do the same. They have a lot of certification opportunities for you, and it's a great place to start. Some people, that's all they ever get, and they stick with that. The pay for a certification generally is going to be not as high as it would be for all this. Probably the lowest pay of all the different certifications and types of education you can get, but it's a great place to start. And it's better than just a college or a high school diploma. Another one is going to the community college. Okay, Salt Lake Community College or Snow College. There's a lot of different community colleges. They're usually a smaller college, although Salt Lake Community College is massive. But they usually only offer 2-year degrees. So they offer certifications and they offer associate's degrees. So a lot of people will go there to get a specialized degree in a specific thing. Like, I'm going to learn to do this one thing and I only need a 2-year degree for that. Or they'll go there for their first 2 years of college because it's cheaper, and then they transfer to the larger university. So they'll get all their general eds done, like their math and science and history classes and whatever, and then they'll transfer to the university they want. It just saves them a lot of money, and a lot of times they can stay at home for those first 2 years while they're transitioning to college life. Technical colleges, they provide specialized training into a very specific career field. So when you major in something at a technical college, when you graduate, there is an actual job attached to it. So when you graduate, you are now certified. You have a technical college in this thing. You are a plumber. You are an electrician. You are whatever. And usually it can be in anything, but it can be in culinary arts, electronics, medical assisting, legal assisting, automotive, things like that. And you're getting a very specified training, a lot of times hands-on training. So if you're one that's like, I like to use my hands and I don't really want to go to a lot of schooling, technical colleges might just be for you. Sometimes at technical college, you can even get paid to work in the field while you're going to school. So they can be a great option. There's also apprenticeships. Apprenticeships actually take quite a long time. They can take from 3 to 5 years, but it's where you work directly with someone. So like if you're a plumber and you work with another plumber and you are apprenticing with them. I mean, this concept has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? But it can actually take longer than going to a technical college, but you're also going to have a more full education. Often it's both. You do the technical college or you get the training first and then you get an apprenticeship where you're working directly with a professional in that area. Again, that's going to be in technical things, usually in doing kind of careers. And then, of course, you've got the standby university. Now, the thing about universities is generally you pay a lot more to go to university. You get a 4-year degree there, although you can get I got my associate's degree at a university, but you can get a 4-year degree at a university. Universities also have a lot of majors that do not result in an obvious career. You can major in something and get a degree in it and then you can't find a job that matches your degree. Okay, it's a very common problem. So that's why a lot of people get these big highfalutin expensive degrees, but then they can't find any job. So it's always a good idea to know what occupation you want first and then get the education required for that occupation. Otherwise, you could spend a whole lot of money getting education that doesn't do you a lot of good as far as finding work that will support a family. Okay, so let's look at the different types of degrees. In your assignment, I think I only list 4. I don't show certification on your list. So you want to make sure, by the way, on your career plan that you filled out this part right here. So you should have pulled this down and chosen which one matches. If you get it correct, it will turn green. Okay, so then you know it's the correct one. So offers hands-on learning, requires fewer unnecessary classes, usually focus on specific hands-on trade. That's probably going to be a technical college. See, it turns green when I get it right. If I did the wrong one, then it's not going to change colors, okay? So now we're going to head back up to here and do the degrees. So as I talk about each one, same thing, pull it and get the right one. Certification is not in there. I should have put it in there, but I didn't. So anyway, so this is kind of a thing that Utah keeps saying, 1, 2, 4, or more. So 1 year of education, 2 years of education, 4 years or more. So which goes which? Okay, so in the 1 year is where you're going to get your certifications. Okay, that's what we already talked about, that where you learn something specified that only takes a few weeks or a few months and you get certified in that thing. That gives you a higher pay than someone who hasn't got the certification. For 2-year degrees, that would be an associate's degree. Okay, you can get an associate's degree in 2 years. And that, again, it could be specialized or it could be more general. Like I have a business associate's degree, which wasn't all that specialized, but it got me a business associate's. Or you can get a specific associate's degree in this very technical area. I have a neighbor that's getting one in NDT, which is non-destructive testing. It's very specific. It's at Salt Lake Community College. It's an associate's degree, and it pays like $70,000 a year when you graduate. So you can make great money just getting an associate's degree if it's in something really specific. Then you got your bachelor's degree, which is the one most people think of. It's a 4-year degree. You have to go to a university to get a bachelor's degree. You can do a lot of them online as well. Okay, and then so that's 4. And then more is the master's and the doctorate. So a master's degree is above a bachelor's. Master's degree usually takes an additional 2 years. So it's 6 years total, right? Your bachelor's plus your master's, so 6 years, but 2 years of school for master's. I got mine in a year, though. Depends on what master's you get or what college you go to. And then a doctorate degree is when you can put a doctor in front of your name. So it's not just doctors, like medical doctors that have doctor in front of their name. You can be a psychologist and be a doctor, right? So if you have a doctorate degree, you're a doctor. But anyway, so that's another usually 2, maybe 3 years on top of a master's degree. But it could be more, like doctors, medical doctors. It takes them 14 years to get there because they have to do all kinds of residency and all kinds of other things that make it take a little bit longer. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of how do I pay for it. Once you've decided what kind of education you need, now you got to figure out how am I going to pay for that. And it could be a lot, it could be a little, depends on where you're going to school. So, okay, so you should have already filled this part out. Next, we're going to talk about how to pay for college. As I talk through each of these, you need to be writing at least one advantage and one disadvantage you can think of for each of those things. What is the advantage to working through college? What's the disadvantage to working through college? And I might not say what it is. I might not specifically say, oh, the disadvantage is this. So you need to think for yourself. Like, what would be the hardest thing about working through college? Maybe because I don't have enough time to go to my classes or whatever. So you be thinking about that as you do the advantages or disadvantages as we go through this next section. So the first thing you ask yourself is, do I have enough money in my bank account to pay for my schooling? The answer is probably no. You probably don't. I don't think many people do, especially many kids have it. But, some kids, their parents have been putting money aside all their lives to pay for their schooling. But most of you, the answer is probably no. But that's where you start. Can I pay for it myself out of money I already have? If the answer is no, then the next thing you ask is, can my family help me? Do my parents have enough money to pay for my schooling or to help me pay for my schooling? Some families do that. Like I pay half, mom and dad pay half, whatever. But again, a lot of families can't afford that. Okay, if you can, great. If you can't, then we go to the next step. The next thing you do is you look for scholarships. Okay, now even if you can pay for school, doesn't mean you can't look for scholarships. But there are thousands of scholarships you can apply for. We're going to talk more about them in a bit. But a scholarship basically means that somebody that's really nice put money aside and said you can apply for this, and if we choose you, we give you this money to pay for your school. And it might just be a couple $100 a quarter. It might be to pay full tuition every year of your schooling. It could be for a lot of different things, but it's a way to get somebody else who's a philanthropist to pay for your schooling. Okay, and there are quite a few scholarships out there that you can apply for a vast number of reasons. Okay, it's not just because a lot of people think of scholarships as like, oh, that's for the athletes or that's for the really smart kids. That's true, but there are also a lot of scholarships for other things as well. Okay, so scholarships aren't an option, or you don't get enough scholarships or whatever. Another thing you can look into is a Pell Grant. Now, this only applies if you come from a poor enough family. So if you're from a middle class to upper class family, you're not going to be able to get a Pell Grant. There's like a certain, I don't know the numbers, but there's a certain amount. If your parents make less than that amount, you can apply for a Pell Grant, and it's just they give you money to pay for your school. Okay, that is how I got through school. Best thing my parents ever did for me was be poor. Okay, so what they did is the day your Pell Grant comes, it immediately pays your tuition, and if there's anything left, you get it. Normally, there's not much left, and so that's a Pell Grant. You can always go for that, and that's not based on your academics necessarily. It's just based on the financial situation of your family. Once you get too old for it, though, they won't do it anymore. You could just get a job. I mean, that is a possibility. Most majors or what you're going to school for, you can work and go to school at the same time. Most people do. And so you might not be able to get a job that will pay enough. If you've got certifications that you got in high school or something, you might be able to get a more specialized job when you get to school. But you could get a job to help pay for the cost of at least of your rent or your housing so that it's not all on your family, or, if you run out of scholarships or don't have enough Pell Grants. You probably should be working while you're in school, depending on what you're going to school for. If you're like in med school, I don't know if you can do both, probably not. But most majors, you can go to school at the same time that you're working. There's also work study. This is another program that you can do that is an actual program that you can apply for. So it's almost like applying for a scholarship, but you're applying for a job that will allow you to work while you're going to school. And so that's another thing that you can look into if you are interested in that. And then, of course, the last resort is student loans. You really don't want to do this unless you absolutely have to. And if you do student loans, you take out as little as you can. Best to take it out and pay it. Like I had one friend of mine that took it out, but then every month she paid a bill. She acted like she was paying a bill towards her student loans, even before it was due, just so she wouldn't have this huge bill when she gets out of school. So student loans are there. They are a possibility, and they're not I've taken out student loans before. It doesn't make you a bad person if you do a student loan. It's just that it can be very dangerous. So here's a couple of statistics here about student loans. So these are the U.S. states with the highest and lowest student debt. So it's kind of cool to see Utah at the bottom on lowest. That's nice. But there are some pretty high areas there. But also, student loan can be a big problem. There's more than 44 million Americans that have student loan debt. And it's getting insane. Like I think the big problem is that people take out massive student loans for very expensive schools, and then they major in something that they can't get a job in, and so they can't really pay it off. That's like the worst case scenario. So if you're going to take out a student loan, you better think about and weigh, is what I'm going to be making when I graduate going to be enough to pay off the amount that I'm borrowing to get the degree? And if the answer is no, you need to either change your major or find another way to pay for it. Okay. Always make sure that there is an occupation attached to the education you are getting, and because otherwise you're going to get a degree in something that was really fun but doesn't have any money, and then you can't pay off your student loans. And so student loan debt is a big problem. But again, if you can pay it off, like we're still paying off my husband's student loans from nursing school. Was it worth it? Absolutely. He got through nursing school. He's making 3 times as much as he was before he went. So it's worth it, but it's taken us a long time to pay it off. Okay, the other thing you gotta know about tuition is in-state versus out-of-state. A lot of kids are like, oh, I'm gonna go to Berkeley, I'm gonna go to Harvard, whatever. Not realizing that if you're not from that state, if you don't have residency, like you've lived in that state for at least a year, you have to pay out-of-state tuition, and it costs twice as much. Okay, it's way more expensive. So, for example, at the University of Utah, the in-state tuition is $8,615. That's how much you pay for every semester of school at Utah State, or at University of Utah. For the exact same classes, if you are not a resident of Utah, you pay $27,000. So be prepared for that if you want to go to an out-of-state school, either you need to pay more or you need to go live there a year and build residency that you live there, and then you can get a lower rate on your tuition. This section you can't do because the website isn't working, so don't worry about out-of-state. You can do the one you do know for Utah State or for University of Utah. Put the in-state and the out-of-state. And then this next slide I'm going to show you will tell you what the in-state tuition is for some of these schools. Okay, so if the schools I do list, you can put them in there, but I don't expect you to have this all filled out because you're not going to be able to. All right, so let's look at some schools and what their tuition rates are. So this is University of Utah. This is what their current tuition rate is. BYU is surprisingly cheaper. I was surprised how much cheaper BYU is than University of Utah. Whereas Utah State is actually more than BYU, which kind of floors me, actually. But it's much harder to get into BYU than it is to get into Utah State. Slick and Snow College are both community colleges, so they're charging about the same rate. And then you might be like, well, why is Westminster so expensive? Why is Ameritech so expensive? Westminster is a private school. You get a fantastic and a very quick education there, but it is incredibly expensive to go there. I think it's the most expensive school in the state. Ameritech is a technical college. Not all technical colleges are that expensive, but they usually cost more because they're quicker. So they just get you through it really, really fast, and it's very specialized. And so that's just one of many technical colleges in Utah. So you can see that the tuition really varies depending on where you're going. So you might want to enter those into your little sheet there. Last thing we're going to talk about is scholarships and the different types of scholarships that there are. So then one that most people know is academic. It's an academic scholarship. I got straight A's, I have 4.0, I applied for the scholarship. And that's great. If you're in that group of people, if you're the kind of person that gets really great grades, you could try for an academic scholarship. They are quite competitive. There's a lot of kids that get really good grades. So you can go for that. It's a great idea with academic to combine that with community service, have other things you're involved in as well. If you have just grades, lots of kids have grades, so you want to have something else that sets you apart as well. So like you are, you've done band, or you've done, theater or dance or something. You have something else that you can show other things you've done. The average academic scholarship is for kids who have average academics. So it's specifically for kids with regular grades. If you have super low grades, probably not. But if you're like a 3.0 student, you can apply for this, okay? There's lots of scholarships. Don't get me wrong. It's not like there's one academic scholarship. There's tons of them. It's just that these are the kind of categories these scholarships go in. So these are scholarships that are aimed at more average academic kids, but they can show they've done some amazing things. Maybe you started a charity, or you did some amazing community service work, or you did something special and different, or you can just, I don't know, there's lots of different things you can do. But there are scholarships for regular, normal academic kids. Community service, this is a scholarship that aims at kids who have a lot of community service. They've done a lot of things for their community. Maybe they started some amazing thing and it went really far, and they can show this incredible outreach program you made or something like that. So you have to go out and do something really cool in the community. But if you can show that, there are a lot of people that give you a scholarship for doing something like that. There are scholarships specifically for women. Okay, not just any women go to college. It's usually tied to a major that doesn't have a lot of women in it. So like if you want to go into engineering and you're female, there are scholarships out there specifically for getting women to do that. They want to get more women in engineering, so they have scholarships specifically for women. So you can look for scholarships based on gender. Sorry, there are no scholarships that I know of that are specifically for men. There's only ones for women. Okay, same with minorities. There are tons of scholarships for minorities. If you are a minority, even if you're like, my grandpa was, half Hispanic or something. If it's close enough related to you, you're still considered a minority. You can apply for scholarships like that. There's a high demand for that. In fact, I've heard there are a lot of scholarships for minorities that go unclaimed. So make sure if you have that, use that. Get a scholarship with it. Use that to your advantage. Especially if you've had a really hard life, if you've had some really difficult things happen to you, if you're the first person to go to college in your family, these they're looking for you. Like, they want to give you a scholarship. If they see that no one in your family's ever gone to college before and you're the first one to break through, they love that. They love those stories. They have this big board that goes through all these names and all these people and reads about them, and they decide who to give the scholarship to. Sometimes they have several to give them to. So if you've got a story, it's going to help you. Okay. There's also a lot of creative scholarships. These are very competitive. So these are going to be like art scholarships, dance, music scholarships, theater scholarships. If you get a creative scholarship, you have to compete. I mean, there's a lot of people that sing. There's a lot of people in bands. So they're very competitive. If you get those scholarships, generally you need to major in it, or you need to spend most of your time doing that. So if you're like, well, I want to be an engineer, but I play the trumpet, so I'm going to get a trumpet scholarship. Fine. You can do that for the most part. But you're going to be spending a lot of your time in the music department when you may need to spend that time in the engineering department. So it can be difficult. If you get a creative scholarship but you're not majoring in that, there can be some issues there, but I don't know that you just can't. But another one is unusual scholarships. There are so many weird scholarships out there. There was a scholarship for whoever could make the best dress out of credit cards. Like, I'm not kidding. There are the weirdest scholarships out there that just are for unusual, strange things, because anyone can start a scholarship. If I have like millions of dollars and I'm just a crazy wacko person and I'm like, hey, I want to make a scholarship for this kind of person who can make this, and I just think it's really cool, I can make that scholarship. Anybody can make a scholarship who has the money to back it up. So you get some weird scholarships in there. Athletic scholarships are the ones that most people have heard of first, since, if I'm going to get a sports scholarship in football or softball or something like that, probably the most competitive type of scholarship to get is in athletics. But they can be great. They can be great if you can get there on scholarship. But you got to work really, really hard to get one of those. So that's it. So make sure that in your document here, let me pull it up one more time. Okay, make sure that you've gone through and you've filled out all the different scholarships here. Everything should be filled out except this section will be kind of spotty. If you have time, you're welcome to do this section, but I'm not going to require it. This is where you go and you look up your careers over. You just pick like 3 of the careers that are over here, type them in here, and then go look them up on the ONET website right here, this one, and look up what the education is and what the salary is for that job. So if you have time, you can do that as well. But if you do this section, then I will pay you money. I'll pay you extra if you filled out this section. So you can go ahead and submit this if it's done. If it's not done, just finish it on Friday. But make sure you should have my career options completely filled out and my education filled out. Everything else we haven't touched. Okay, we probably won't touch it until you get another teacher next quarter. Okay, so those 2 sections will be graded on your grades. So if it's done, go ahead and submit it in Canvas. Remember, you submit it from your Google Drive. If you don't know how to do that, then just wait until Monday and we'll show you in class on Monday. But you can go ahead and submit it today. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.